My partner left me. For my best friend, Reddit Storytime. What's worse than losing your partner? Losing them to your best friend. This is the shocking Reddit-inspired story of betrayal, heartbreak, and resilience. The perfect illusion. Betrayal has a way of sneaking in quietly, like a draft through a cracked window. You don't notice it at first. You just feel a little colder than you should. Looking back now, all the warning signs were there. But at the time, I thought my life was perfect. I'd been dating Mark for almost 3 years. He wasn't flashy, but he was steady, kind, and funny in a dry way that always made me laugh. I believed we balanced each other. I was the dreamer, the one who wanted to paint big pictures of our future, and he was the realist, grounding me with his logic and calmness. And then there was Emily. Emily and I had been best friends since middle school. We'd survived braces, bad haircuts, high school drama, and messy breakups. She was the person I told everything to, the one who knew my coffee order by heart, the one who always showed up when I needed her most. So when my two favorite people got along, it felt like a blessing. They joked easily, they teased me together, they helped each other plan surprises for my birthday. I thought I was lucky. Most people struggled when their partner and their best friend didn't click. Mine clicked effortlessly, maybe too effortlessly. The first crack was small. One night, the three of us were hanging out in my apartment. Mark and Emily were sitting on the couch, debating some random TV show plot twist while I fetched snacks from the kitchen. When I came back, they were laughing, harder than the joke seemed to deserve. Their heads leaned close together, almost touching. I brushed it off. They were friends. That was good. But once you notice a crack, you start seeing others. Emily started texting Mark more often. It was little things at first. Hey, what's the name of that restaurant you mentioned? Or, can you send me the link to that playlist? Stuff that could have gone through me, but didn't. Then I noticed she laughed harder at his jokes than mine. She started taking his side in silly debates, even when she used to back me. And when I'd suggest plans, sometimes she'd say, "Oh, I already talked to Mark about that," as if they had their own parallel conversation running alongside mine. I told myself it was fine, that I was being paranoid. After all, Mark came home to me every night. Emily still called me her best friend. Surely, I was imagining things. The illusion shattered one Friday evening. I'd planned a cozy dinner at my place. Pasta, wine, a movie. Mark texted that he'd be late. Hours passed. My calls went unanswered. When he finally showed up, his excuse was vague. Something about grabbing drinks with a few coworkers. But his shirt smelled faintly of Emily's perfume. I didn't want to believe it. I told myself I was wrong, that maybe she just hugged him earlier that day, that maybe I was overthinking again. But the pit in my stomach refused to settle. 2 weeks later, the truth came out. I stopped by Emily's place unannounced. I was carrying a bottle of wine, ready for a girl's night to shake off my unease. Her car was outside, the lights on. When she didn't answer the door, I pushed it open. It had never been locked between us. And there they were. Mark, Emily, on her couch, kissing. The bottle slipped from my hand and shattered on the floor. They jumped apart, eyes wide, faces drained of color. But the damage was already done. In that single moment, I lost a partner and a best friend. The aftershock. The sound of glass shattering echoed through Emily's apartment, but it couldn't drown out the sound of my heart breaking. For a moment, none of us moved. Mark stood frozen, his lips still wet from the kiss, his hand half raised as if to reach for me. Emily clutched a throw pillow like it could shield her from what she'd done. I couldn't breathe. My chest tightened, my throat burned, and all I could manage was a choked whisper. How could you?" Emily started crying instantly. "It's not what it looks like. Don't you dare say that." My voice cracked, but it was sharp enough to cut through her excuses. I saw it with my own eyes. Mark finally spoke, his voice low, guilty. "I didn't mean for this to happen." My laugh was hollow, ugly. "Didn't mean for it to happen? You kissed my best friend in her living room. What part of that was an accident?" Neither of them had an answer. The silence screamed louder than any excuse could. I walked out, leaving the broken glass behind me. The days that followed blurred together in a haze of disbelief. My phone buzzed constantly. Texts from Emily, from Mark, from mutual friends who'd already started whispering about what happened. Emily's messages were endless apologies. "I'm so sorry. Please let me explain. It just happened. I swear I never wanted to hurt you. You're still my best friend." That last one nearly made me throw my phone across the room. Best friend. How could she call herself that when she destroyed the one thing that mattered most to me? Mark's texts were shorter. Can we talk? I messed up, but I still love you. Please don't give up on us. Love. Another hollow word. If he loved me, he wouldn't have betrayed me with the one person he knew I trusted most. I ignored them both. But silence doesn't stop the pain. It just amplifies it. At night, I lay awake replaying every moment. Every joke they'd shared, every lingering glance I'd brushed off, every time Emily had defended him over me. My mind tore apart the past, stitching together a new narrative where I was the fool and they were the conspirators. Had they laughed at me behind my back? Had our entire friendship been a slow betrayal waiting to bloom? The questions ate me alive. 2 weeks later, Emily showed up at my door. I almost didn't answer, but the pounding wouldn't stop, and eventually I opened it just enough to see her face. She looked wrecked, dark circles under her eyes, hair unwashed, a desperate plea written all over her expression. "Please," she whispered. "Please just talk to me." Against my better judgment, I let her in. She sat on my couch, wringing her hands. It wasn't planned. I never wanted this. Mark and we just connected. I laughed bitterly. Connected? You mean you slept with your best friend's boyfriend? She winced. It only happened once. Emily, my voice cracked, rising. Do you think that makes it better? That somehow it hurts less if you only betrayed me one time. Tears streamed down her face. I love him. The words hit harder than the kiss I'd walked in on. Love. She loved him. My best friend loved my partner. I felt something inside me snap. Not anger, not sadness, something colder. Acceptance, maybe. The realization that the people I loved most had chosen each other, and in doing so, had chosen to destroy me. Get out, I whispered. She begged. She cried. But eventually she left, her sobs echoing down the hallway. And I collapsed onto the floor, finally letting myself cry the way I hadn't since that night. Mark tried too. He showed up at my apartment a few days later, flowers in hand like they could erase the memory burned into my brain. I made a mistake, he said softly. But I love you. She doesn't mean anything compared to you. I stared at him, incredulous. Doesn't mean anything? You left me to be with her. That means everything. He reached for me, but I stepped back. I can't forgive you. Not for this. Not ever. His face hardened then, his guilt curdling into something uglier. Fine. If that's how you feel, then maybe I'm better off with her. And just like that, the man I thought would be my future walked out of my life for good. The weeks that followed were a blur of grief. Friends tried to comfort me, but their words slid off me like rain on glass. Some avoided me entirely, unwilling to take sides. Others whispered behind my back, dissecting the drama like it was entertainment. I stopped going out, stopped answering calls. My apartment became a cave of silence, filled with the ghost of laughter that wasn't mine anymore. But in the stillness, something unexpected began to grow. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was clarity. I realized I'd built my life around two people who didn't value me the way I valued them. I'd poured loyalty, love, and trust into vessels that couldn't hold it. And now, with the wreckage around me, I had a choice: stay broken or rebuild. Picking up the pieces. Healing isn't a straight line. It's jagged, uneven, full of days where you feel strong and others where you collapse under the weight of it all. At first, my healing looked like survival. Waking up, showering, eating something other than instant noodles, that was victory. I forced myself to go outside, even if it was just to sit in a cafe with headphones on, pretending I wasn't eavesdropping on strangers' conversations to remind myself the world kept moving. But the nights were hardest. The silence pressed in, and memories filled the void. Mark's laugh in my kitchen. Emily's voice on the other end of late-night calls. Their betrayal played on loop, and I hated that my brain kept replaying them as if they were still precious. I started journaling. At first, it was just scribbles of rage. They ruined everything. I hate them. I hate myself for not seeing it sooner. But slowly, the words shifted. They became questions, reflections, glimpses of strength I didn't know I had. One night, I wrote, "They took my partner. They took my best friend. But they didn't take me." And somehow, that truth anchored me. Meanwhile, the world outside refused to give me peace. I heard through the grapevine that Mark and Emily were officially a couple. They weren't hiding it. Hand-holding at bars, posting smiling selfies, even showing up at mutual friends' events together. At first, The thought of them flaunting their happiness made me sick. But then came the whispers. They don't look that happy. Emily's been drinking more lately. Mark still flirts with other women. It was messy, like I knew it would be. But I refused to let their chaos drag me back in. Instead, I poured myself into new routines. I joined a gym, not to punish my body, but to remind myself it was strong. I took a pottery class, molding clay into shapes that sometimes cracked, sometimes held. I reconnected with old friends I'd neglected, people who asked about me without expecting drama as payment. And slowly, life started to take on a new shape. Of course, wounds have a way of reopening when you least expect it. One Saturday afternoon, I bumped into them at the farmer's market. Mark, carrying a bag of peaches, Emily holding his arm. They froze when they saw me. For a heartbeat, it felt like no time had passed. Emily was the first to speak. Hi. Her voice was small, unsure. Mark looked like he wanted to say something too, but I raised a hand. Don't. Just don't. They nodded, and we passed each other like strangers. But my hands trembled for an hour afterward, the weight of their presence pressing against my chest. Later that night, I wrote in my journal, "They don't deserve to break me twice." And I meant it. The real turning point came months later, when I decided to take a solo trip. I'd never traveled alone before. It terrified me. But something inside me whispered that I needed to prove I could build joy without anyone else holding my hand. I booked a cheap flight to the coast, found a little Airbnb near the ocean, and spent a week walking beaches, reading in cafes, and watching sunsets paint the sky in colors no betrayal could touch. On the last night, sitting with sand between my toes, I realized I wasn't thinking about them anymore. I was thinking about me, my future, my strength, my dreams. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. Of course, freedom doesn't erase the past. When I got back, I received a message from Emily. Just one line, "I miss you." I stared at it for a long time. Once, those words would have broken me open. Once, I would have rushed back, desperate to patch what was shattered. But now, I simply deleted it. Because I realized I didn't miss her. I missed who she used to be. And that person was gone. Mark tried one last time too. Months after the breakup, he showed up outside my apartment, looking thinner, more tired. "She's not who I thought she was," he admitted, his voice heavy. "I made a mistake. Can we try again?" The old me might have faltered. But the new me, the one who had walked beaches alone, who had built herself from ashes, just shook her head. "No, Mark. You made your choice. And so did I." The door closed behind him, and with it, so did that chapter of my life. Writing my own ending. By the time a year had passed since that night in Emily's apartment, the raw wound had turned into a scar. It still ached when touched, but it no longer controlled me. Life looked different now. Not perfect, but mine. I'd moved into a new apartment, smaller, but bright, with sunlight spilling across my plants each morning. I'd changed jobs too, stepping out of the comfort zone of routine to try something that challenged me. Every decision, every risk, felt like a declaration. I am not defined by what they did to me. Friends noticed the difference. "You seem lighter," one told me over brunch. And I realized it was true. I wasn't carrying them anymore. Mark's betrayal, Emily's broken trust. I had set it down, piece by piece, until I could walk upright again. Of course, the past has a way of resurfacing when you least expect it. At another mutual friend's wedding, I saw them again. Mark and Emily. Together. They looked ordinary. Not radiant. Not glowing with passion. Just two people holding hands because they didn't know what else to do. For a moment, old emotions stirred. Anger, grief, the sharp sting of betrayal. But then something surprising happened. The feelings passed. I didn't want them back. I didn't want revenge. I didn't even want an apology anymore. I just wanted peace. And I had it. Later that night, as music filled the reception hall, Emily approached me. Her eyes darted nervously, her hands twisting in front of her like she was bracing for impact. "I know I don't deserve to say anything," she whispered. "But I'm sorry. Truly. I ruined everything between us." For a long time, I looked at her. The girl who had once been my safe place, my partner in everything, the one I trusted more than anyone. And I realized she wasn't that girl anymore. "I believe you're sorry," I said softly. "But sorry doesn't undo it." Her eyes filled with tears, but she nodded. She didn't beg this time. She didn't ask for friendship. She just walked away. And that, finally, was closure. As for Mark, he avoided me the entire night. Maybe he was ashamed. Maybe he didn't care. Either way, it didn't matter. He was no longer my story to tell. What mattered was me. I'd built a life beyond them, a life that wasn't defined by betrayal but by resilience. I'd learned to enjoy my own company, to trust my own instincts, to lean on people who actually deserved my loyalty. And somewhere along the way, I started to believe in love again. Not the reckless kind that blinds you, but the steady kind that builds, brick by brick. Months later, I met someone new. Not a grand whirlwind, but a slow, steady unfolding. Someone who listened, who asked questions, who showed up consistently. Someone who didn't make me doubt my worth. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was better. It was real. Looking back now, I don't see my story as one of loss, but one of discovery. I discovered that betrayal doesn't define me, that scars can become symbols of strength, that sometimes losing the people you thought you couldn't live without is the only way to find the person you were meant to become. Yes, my partner left me for my best friend, but in the end, they didn't take my future. They just cleared the space for me to build a better one.